Hello, Pauline, and welcome to the Curved Square podcast. I'm Shashank. I'm your host for the session, and I would like to start off with asking if you could share a bit about yourself and how has your journey been so far.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm flattered. So, on the journey, can you specify a little bit like what part is the most interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, how did you start off? Like, where did you come from, first of all? And then how did you enter the design industry and what was your experiences doing that?
Okay, so I'm originally Ukrainian, which you cannot say by my name, most likely.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Ukraine. I studied in Ukraine. I moved to France completely by chance because I went there for 2 months or 3 months to study French because I wanted to read the Monte Cristo in French.
Yeah.
And then I got an offer to stay and continue studying there. So that's what I did. I studied computer science in Le Mans. It's a city roughly 200 kilometers from Paris. So my education has been in computer science, and I have a master's in artificial intelligence, by the way, which is very timely now. So I was working as a web developer while I was studying. Somewhere in between different web development meetings, I think somehow I was reading a bit about design and like customer experience, because back then it wasn't like that big of a topic. So in parallel, I was freelancing to do like websites for people and to do like a bit of visual identity, like all over the place. And this is when it kind of all came together. I thought if I changed the country, why couldn't I change the profession? So I went on to study customer experience and UX design in the university for 1 more year. I was in an extended internship in Paris at that time. And then my career started as a UX designer in a consulting boutique in Paris. Then I stayed in consulting ever since. So I worked in different countries. I spent 8 years in McKinsey, and now entrepreneur, same in like working with consulting business, help them build design teams. So that's a bit of a like short version of the journey.
But how long ago was this? When did you start off because you moved from Ukraine to Paris first, like to France, and then you moved to Prague, and then you moved like right now where you are.
Yes. So I moved from Ukraine to France. Then I moved from France to Prague. I spent 2 years in Prague. I left McKinsey. I went to Azerbaijan, where I was co-leading an innovation lab for the biggest financial holding. I came back to Prague to McKinsey, spent 1 year there, and then decided to leave and start my own thing. And now I'm living between Prague and everywhere in the world, wherever I can see my friends and do some fun stuff.
So then, tell me about your experience with McKinsey and how did you land that design, like that job particularly?
Well, that's actually very funny, very funny story because so I was in a consulting boutique in Paris. I wanted to leave consulting. I wanted to go into a like product world startup and be like a in-house product designer. So I decided to leave. I put my notice, etc. And in France, you have 3 months notice period before you can leave. So that company, it was amazing. I loved everything I did with them, but I wanted to go into a product like purely not consulting product. Yeah, and then somewhere in between my searches, I got approached by a recruiter from McKinsey, who was then leading the build of the Paris digital studio. And the funny story about that is I don't come from like business background. I come from tech background. So for me, McKinsey I didn't know what it was, right? So it wasn't Apple, it wasn't Google. So I thought, oh, it's just another consulting company. And the reason I accepted the interviews was because back then my English was really, really bad. I mean, I still make a lot of mistakes, but back then, like, I couldn't put two words together. And I just started like getting it back into like a proper shape. I had a tutor, and I accepted the interviews because the recruiter told me that the interviews are going to be in English. And for me, it was an opportunity to practice my English. And it was still at the moment where like it was way before COVID, right? So we didn't have, like, in most of the situations we didn't have Zoom interviews, so it was phone interviews. So I think I had 8 interviews in total, but I loved it so much. Like, I loved all the people I met. It was super cool. I loved what they were telling me. So yeah, it felt like the right place to be. So I went on to continue with consulting.
So it was kind of a recruitment that you went through, like, and also personal experience of like experiencing with English and as well. That was what you had. It's very interesting.
But the English story is not finished there. Okay. So when I was in the recruitment process, like, part of my interviews, I think half of my interviews, they were in English. I was very upfront about the fact that my English is not good. Like, I never tried to hide it. And they said, no problem. You'll work in French. It's all gonna be fine, etc. But then what happened is that, like, when I joined, the majority of my work never was in French. So I needed to learn English very, very, very fast because now I needed to work in English. They actually helped me a lot. They sent me for 2 weeks into a English boot camp kind of situation, so that I could get upskilled, so that my teammates could understand me.
But like, you didn't, like, did you have any classes with English before that as well?
Yeah. But I think the problem is, like, when you live in France, you so much don't use anything except for French that it just like left my head. And I was never, like, in school and in university, I was never fluent per se, so I could read and understand, etc. But I never had like a
working experience,
a level of English that would be like good enough for me to work in, and I never needed it.
You understood French before?
Yeah. I speak French.
So then, like, tell me, what were some of the like early career lessons that you had which still continue to shape your product and design thinking?
I think there is one story that I was telling about recently in my LinkedIn posts. That's a little bit of a like general observation I saw, at least when I was studying design, is that there is such a huge gap between what the school teaches you and what actually happens in the real world, to the point where it hurts people. Because in the school, I think everyone is getting taught about the linear process. Okay, you start with completely like open space research, and then you go and you identify the problem, and then you go and you try to do the personas, and then you do the synthesis, and then 5 months later you might have a first very early paper prototype. So I'm exaggerating it a bit for the purpose of telling my story, but I think that's generally how we are taught and how I was taught in school. Like, oh, don't rush into it. You need to take time. You need to like explore the situation properly, etc. In reality, what happened?
Do all the 4-step design process and everything.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think in reality, what happens is that, especially if you are working in a like slightly bigger organization, so like in small teams, it's a bit easier to follow the process. In bigger organizations, like generally what happens is that you have a plan, you have a roadmap, and it can still be informed by customer insights, but you will have the roadmap. So you will have a roadmap which will tell you, like, I need to have this feature or that feature or something done by X date. So then you kind of need to find the right balance between still kind of follow the business lens, to bring this value that also is paying your salary, to be very frank, but at the same time to build something that will kind of satisfy your own desire as a designer to be helpful to the society and then bring something valuable to users. So that's a bit of the context where people live, right? When they get out of school. And I think the best lesson that I had was from my manager back then. So we had discussing a project scope. One of the main ideas that we were discussing was the fact that we needed to build the product, like the wireframes for the product in 3 days. And I was very passionately defending the fact that it's not possible to do this. And we were going back and forth. So then my manager, he said, like, look, let's stop the conversation here. It's not efficient. So you are the expert. I understand you telling me this is not possible, but then stop spending time trying to convince me that what I'm asking for is impossible. You have 3 days. Tell me what is possible to achieve in the 3 days. And what do you need to achieve this? And I think that's such a missing element in so many people I work with, because as designers, we are taught the process and we are taught to be like to bring no hypothesis in the discussions, that we also don't bring the approach hypothesis when we need to. So that's my kind of favorite junior to mid-level lesson, is like bring the hypothesis and be proactive rather than being defensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Definitely. Like, you should look on the positive side and not the negative side of what can be achieved in those 3 days. So, but then what would you say about the current situation of the design market? Like, what have you been observing? What are the trends? Because there is so much going on right now.
That's true. I mean, and I think we scheduled this conversation before cloud design came in, yeah. So now it's even more interesting. I think it's a tough market, right? Overall, and there are a few kind of reasons for that. One is that I think in most cases, in the like 10-15 years that design was like very active part of digital industry, what unfortunately didn't happen is that in most organizations there are no design leaders at the like C-1 level. So you have organizations where it is the case, but it's not the majority of organizations. So as a result, what happens is that it's kind of the first industry to get a bit diluted when you have a bit of the questionable situation. That's a bit of the like overall trend. Then my personal opinion, I don't like the framing around AI will kill design or AI will kill UX, etc. Because when I start,
that's all the hype these days on social media. Wherever you go, you see Figma is dead, design is dead. All these tools are killing design.
But exactly. But I think what is fundamentally wrong about this framing is that, like, when I started designing for the first time in my life, we were using Photoshop and Illustrator. And then Sketch came in and it took a part of the market. And then Figma came in and it became a huge thing because they brought this like collaborative workspace. And now cloud design is coming in and the Stitch is coming in. So that, for me, like, they are all tools. What does happen is that it does put a challenge on us as designers around what is the value that we are bringing, right? Because like if the only value like a person was bringing is producing Figma screens, I mean, it's not a question, it was just a question of time.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the core stays the same. What the new tools create is that they create a much easier entrance to the space. And they create also opportunities for other people in the team to contribute to how the interface will look like and to how interface will be shaped. So then I think it's more of the question around like what is the role of the designer in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And then like, is the profile per se should stay the same, or do we need to bring more skills into the skill set? So for example, like I'm talking about this all the time, majority of designers I meet, they're like, I don't want to specialize. I don't want to be deep in any industry. But that's actually one of the biggest values you can bring as a designer. If you have worked in banking for your entire life, I mean, at some point, you don't need to run 100 million hours of research because you know things that work. And I think for me, the AI game, it's not killing design. It's just exposing the fact that so many people were perceiving design as a pixel pushing exercise, and that this is very easy to replace. So I think the question is less about will it replace design or kill design. It's more about will it, like, how good designers can leverage it to have more influence and to have more impact. Because now you can test things faster. Now you can iterate faster. So
yeah, but there is also this argument that design roles will merge into the managerial roles. So it will become like a full product manager along with design. It's like a hybrid role will emerge out of this AI hype over time. What do you think of that?
I think it's very likely. And I think it's my view is that it's very good. Because I would just do a bit of the distinction between managerial roles and product roles.
Yeah.
For me, they're two different things. So I don't think design will evolve into like a people management type of exercise. I think it is very likely that it's gonna get much closer to the product, and especially like in smaller organizations. And I think this was already happening before AI, etc. We will have a role of like, let's call them product shapers. So this will be someone who is thinking about what should we build, why should we build it, in which order should we build it, how it should work for customer, and how it's bringing money.
Decision making.
And say it again?
Decision making.
Yeah, exactly. So someone who is like shaping the product, you will have someone building the product, and they will be extremely close, right? Because those first profiles, they will be able to kind of produce things that hopefully will be able to get plugged very easily in the production. And then what I think, and I mean, I don't know because I'm less expert in this area, but what I think is likely to stay separate is all the part with like purely deep craft, branding, visual design, and so on and so on. Because that's for me a whole separate skill set. And I do know there are a few like good tools that allows you to create like imagery, etc. But I think we are still at the point where if you're looking for like really unique identity, or you want a really unique kind of graphic vibe, I don't know again, but I don't think AI is there yet. So my view is that we will have a graphic, we will have product / design,
Yeah.
and we will have then like core tech.
Okay. So I think that AI will kind of distribute itself into different segments of which AI tool is specializing in that particular area.
Correct, because I think before, like if you think about it, like a bit less in terms of responsibilities, a bit more in terms of tools. Like designers were sitting in Figma, product managers were sitting in Miro and in Jira, and then developers were sitting in Visual Studio Code, etc.
Yeah.
Now it's all becoming much more fluent, so the barrier to entry is disappearing, and I think what will happen is that because of that, the roles will become a bit more merged, yes, and you will have a bit more like transversal profile. So we will see even more distinction between like people being like T-shaped, so the T bar will become very wide, and you will have people with like I shapes who will become very, very, very deep experts in something. So I think we will go to extremes.
So a combination of generalists and specialists will be there. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But like just to follow up with that question, what do you think about these AI tools that are coming in these days? Because every other day we keep hearing about a new tool that has arrived. And yeah, so what do you think about this? Have you been exploring some of these tools and what's your experience?
Some of them, yes. So I'm a huge fan of Claude altogether. I'm becoming a decently confident user of anti-gravity.
Okay.
So now I kind of can build stuff from there. I did play with Cloud Design. I didn't play with Google Stitch, although I haven't used Figma in like forever. I don't remember how many years. So the only reason I go there is mostly to like create some SVG shapes when I need. So, but it was even before AI. I wasn't using it that much.
But you did a degree in design in computer science, right?
Yeah.
So you have experience with coding languages.
I mean, yes, but like very basic, very basic.
So which ones did you use like back then?
The languages. You mean when I studied?
Yeah.
It was I mean mostly like very old stuff like Pascal, C++. I did code a bit on .NET and a bit of PHP. I mean, I know a bit of like JavaScript and a bit of like HTML, CSS. So I mean,
so you know everything.
That's a very strong word, right? Like, but I can read it. I will not always be able to write it myself.
The fundamentals of data structures always remain the same, right? It can be any language.
Yeah. So I can read in most of the scenarios. I can, like, if I have a code, I can understand what's going on. I will not always. I mean, I will not be able to write it on my own, and that's very far from my aspirations. But like, then did you also explore this new tool Cursor and codecs that have come in from OpenAI? Because they are trying to merge the flow with design and coding. No, I didn't. I mean, I think the only tool I played with from OpenAI is ChatGPT per se. And at some point I switched to Claude and like it much better. And anti-gravity is powered by Claude as well, like Claude models. And I mean, very honestly, like the way I'm talking about it with my co-founder, I'm not one who's very excited by experimentation. I'm not looking to test one new stuff, or I'm not trying, and I'm not saying it's good, right? But like, I'm old, so I like when stuff works. And if I have a clear path to have something work, that's the one that I will use. So I still might to build some like use cases around it or try to experiment a little bit, but I will more experiment with like business use cases rather than trying to install or test a new tool. Yeah, that makes sense. But like, you also explored Claude Code and this Figma MCP plugin. No, so I did explore code, but not in design context, completely different context. Okay. So, like, I would like to ask you next about what do you think in terms of like the current design market situation that we are facing? How should the young designers who are entering the market at this particular point, how should they be like, what area should they focus on right now, and how should they position themselves right now? I think For me, it fundamentally depends a little bit on what the person wants to get for the next 2 to 3 years in their career. And I know that we had the luxury not to choose that early. Unfortunately, people who are graduating now, they need to take a bit more stronger bets than we had to take, because we were in the area where no one knew what design was, so you had to fight to get, you had fewer roles and you had to fight to get people to understand what you were doing. You have a different challenge of not being able to afford a bit of exploration. And so I think, and that's why I'm saying it depends on where you want to go. I see a few paths, right? So path one, you want to land in a corporate and you want to join, and corporate can be different corporate. You can have big tech, or you can have banking, insurance.
Yeah.
That they come with different pros and cons, but I think the best approach here is networking, trying to meet people who are hiring in their teams. If not big tech, but more traditional industries, then explore learn the industry, learn what banking means, what insurance means, learn what green energy means, because then we will come to the conversation with already a bit of understanding around what is basically your onboarding time will be cut in half, and that's that good value proposition as someone junior joining the team. So that would be my advice, in case you're looking for big tech or corporate, network as crazy, learn the industry.
How should a junior person network ideally?
I think again it depends a little bit on where they live. Ideally, what works best is in-person type of setups. When I lived in France, we had a lot of meetups or networking events, etc. So that could be one angle. Another one is asking for intros from people you already meet. So, and that's something I learned, but I'm also not necessarily using it very well. It's every person you speak to, you leave with 2 introductions. And I think what matters more is how you approach the conversation. Ideally, it's all about a very concrete question, right? So for example, I don't know, let's say I want to land a job in banking, or okay, banking is easy for me. Let's take energy because I know nothing about energy. So I would likely start with someone at my level or someone junior in the team, and ask them questions about, okay, what do you work on? Tell me a bit about how your day is looking like, and so on and so on. Because this is allowing you to kind of test the approach, learn the industry, and get the right connections.
So you suggest in-person networking and meeting up with people and telling them about what you have been working on?
We're not necessarily telling them what you are. We are not talking about active job search, right? We are talking about the entrance in the industry. That this is very, very different.
Yeah.
So I think in-person conversations are always better. There are people who feel like a fish in the water in big rooms. My husband, for example, is like this. He can enter any room and be friends with everyone in the next 5 minutes. I cannot do this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I cannot do this. I feel shy. I feel lost. So for me, what works best is in-person conversations, smaller groups. And there are generally a lot of events are accommodating for this type of experiences. So that I would say corporate. If we are talking about person wants to work in a smaller players, more like product roles and so on, I think again there are two options. It's either you try to join someone very, very early as a founding designer. Likely this will mean that at the beginning you will make close to no money. It's not an option for everyone. So then you might try to join a startup or a company 5-7 people already organized and try to be the only designer in the team, because then it will give you the experience you'll need to take your next step. And the third one is if you want to be a co-founder or you want to be a builder at some point, just build. No other advice. Build and talk about what you are building.
That's something everyone needs to reflect on right now, to think about networking, think about connecting with people, because I think increasingly in this age of AI, it's very important to have this human connection with people.
Okay.
What is your what are you doing currently right now, and what are you working on?
So I'm actually building something. So I left McKinsey to start my own thing. I'm building a small advisory for digital agencies and consulting boutiques to actually help digital folks have better careers. So we work with founders to help them think through how the people ops look like in their organization, starting from career matrix, review cycles, and a bit of practical upskilling and leadership workshops as well. And in parallel, I'm building the consultancy that is called Polar Bear.
Polar Bear, okay. Interesting name.
Polar Bear, yes. I know, because the same way polar bear are disappearing because we stopped protecting what matters, the human connection in the workplace is disappearing and we want to protect it. So that's our mission.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. So, but then I understand you're also living this nomad life, or you're traveling around different places?
Yeah, a little bit. So I'm now in Portugal, but it's more for a short period of time. I'm still based in Prague, and we are going back to Prague soon.
But you live in Prague?
Yeah. Now I live in Prague. Yeah.
So tell me, how do you in your daily life? How do you keep this balance between design thinking, design creativity, and business thinking? How do you balance out?
Oh, I mean, I would love to give you tips, but I think I don't.
But you try to be creative.
So in my life, I solved it in a very a creative way. I have an amazingly creative co-founder, so I get all the creativity from him, and I work best with the structure and the systems, etc. So I'm not being the creative half of the brain in our business.
Nice. So you're doing the structured part and he's doing the creative part.
Yes, correct. So but it's very funny because I have a design background and he has more of a people background, but somehow the roles are reversed and we are both enjoying it very much.
I think we can end the session over here. It has been quite insightful, and we learned a lot from your experiences. And you can
we can stop.
You can say goodbye or something.
Well, okay. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much, Pauline.
Thank you.